The beach always felt different after dark. The waves crashed harder, the wind howled louder, and the horizon melted into blackness. But that night, I had nowhere else to go. My car broke down miles away from the nearest town, and walking back along the isolated coastal road felt more dangerous than braving the beach. That's when I saw it. A small, weather-beaten hut crouched at the edge of the dunes. Its roof sagged, the windows were boarded up, and the wood was blackened with age. It shouldn't have been there. I'd driven this road a dozen times and never noticed it before. But the rain was coming down in sheets, and I needed shelter. As I approached, the wind carried the thick scent of salt and something else, something metallic. I hesitated, my hand hovering over the handle, my breath fogged in the cold air. And for a moment, I swore I saw movement behind the cracked window pane. I shook it off, blaming it on the rain streaking across the glass, and pushed the door open. The smell hit me first, damp wood and something sharp like rust. The air was thick, heavy, almost syrupy. I flicked on my flashlight, its weak beam cutting through the dust-filled air. The walls were lined with tattered nets and hooks, some still stained dark with old rust. A table stood in the corner, covered with a sheet of plastic, yellowed and flaking at the edges. The rain hammered the roof, drowning out everything else. But then I heard it, a creak above me like someone shifting their weight. I froze, flashlight trembling in my hand. My eyes darted to the ceiling. The wood groaned again, the noise trailing from one end of the hut to the other, slow and deliberate. I swallowed hard, backing up toward the door. My hand fumbled for the handle, but it wouldn't budge. I yanked harder, but it stayed firm, like it was sealed shut. Panic started clawing at my chest. I twisted around, flashing the light of the windows, but they were boarded up tight, nails driven deep into the wood. That's when I heard it. A whisper, soft, scratchy, like sandpaper scraping over metal. It wasn't words, just noise, rasping and hissing, coming from above. My breath came faster, and I edged toward the back of the room where a small hatch lay embedded in the floor. My flashlight flickered, and I slammed it against my palm, the beam flaring back to life. The whispering grew louder, more insistent, like it was circling me. I crouched down, hands shaking, and pulled at the hatch. It resisted at first, swollen with age, but finally gave with a shuddering crack. Dust and the stench of rot billowed out, and I gagged, covering my mouth. I shone the light down. Stairs, narrow, steep, descending into blackness. I should have left, should have broken a window if I had to. But the whispering grew louder, pounding against my skull, urging me down. My feet moved before I could stop them, one after the other, creaking on the wooden steps that groaned beneath my weight. The smell intensified with each step, mold, rot, and that same metallic tang. My flashlight beam wavered, catching on something glinting at the bottom. I squinted, heart hammering. Chains, dozens of them, some rusted, others new, looped around metal poles that jutted from the dirt floor. I felt bile rise in my throat, the realization crashing over me like ice water. Before I could turn back, I heard it again, the whisper, this time louder and clearer. My name. It was my name, called out in a voice I didn't recognize, dragging through the dark like a blade over stone. I staggered back, nearly tripping on the steps, flashlight flickering wildly. I turned to run, feet pounding up the stairs, breath ragged. But when I reached the top, the hatch was closed. I slammed my fists against it, screaming, but it wouldn't budge. I pressed my ear to the wood, heart pounding, and listened. There was silence, broken only by the distant crash of waves. And then, just beneath that, the whisper came again, closer this time. You shouldn't have come. The hatch creaked open, but I hadn't touched it. The flashlight died, plunging me into darkness. I still have no idea why I stopped. It was supposed to be a simple drive along the coast, a chance to clear my head after everything that happened. But the rain came down like sheets of glass, blurring the road, and the beach seemed like the safest place to pull over. I parked near a dune, headlights piercing through the fog. That's when I saw it. A small hut, half buried in sand, leaning against the wind as if it had been standing there for 100 years. The door was slightly ajar, creaking with each gust, almost inviting. I shouldn't have gone inside, but the rain was relentless, and my jacket was already soaked through. I jogged across the sand, my shoes sinking with each step, and shoved the door open. It groaned like it hadn't moved in years. Inside, the air was thick, stale with a dampness that clung to my skin. The floorboards were warped, the walls yellowed with age. The only light came from a single window, cracked and smeared with dust. I shook the water from my hair and stepped further in. A smell lingered in the air, something metallic and sharp. It reminded me of rust or blood. I should have turned around right then. But curiosity is a damn stubborn thing. There was a table in the corner, covered with a sheet of dust so thick I could write my name in it. On it sat an old radio, the kind with knobs and an antenna, crusted with salt. I reached out and turned it. Nothing but static. I spun the dial, and for a moment, there was a whisper, faint, like someone speaking from the other side of a wall. My breath caught. I leaned in, turning the volume up, and the whisper grew louder. I stepped back, heart hammering. The whisper wasn't coming from the radio. It was behind me. I spun around, flashlight beam slicing through the dim room. Nothing, just the peeling walls and warped floorboards. The whispering stopped, replaced by the rhythmic thump of rain on the roof. I exhaled, almost laughing at myself. But then it started again, closer this time, just by my ear. A rush of cold air swept across my neck like breath. I stumbled back, nearly tripping over a pile of ropes coiled near the door. I grabbed the handle, ready to bolt, but something scratched across the window pane. I whipped around. Outside, through the fog glass, I could make out the beach stretching into darkness. And then I saw them, footprints, deep and wet, leading from the shoreline directly to the window. My heart stopped. I stared, unblinking, waiting for logic to explain it away. High tide, drifting sand, but the footprints weren't scattered or jagged. They were precise, deliberate, and fresh. The whispering started again, louder this time, like it was crawling inside my ears. I yanked the door open and stumbled out onto the beach, the rain hitting my face like needles. The footprints were gone, erased by the surf, but the feeling of being watched lingered, sticking to my skin like the rain. I ran back to my car, breath hitching with every step. I flung the door open, slid into the driver's seat, and slammed the locks down. My hand shook as I turned the key. The engine sputtered but didn't catch. I cursed, trying again. This time it roared to life. I didn't look back as I peeled away from the beach, headlights cutting through the mist. 2 days later, I saw the news. A body had washed up near that beach, half buried in sand, wrists bound with rope. The reporter mentioned the hut. Locals called it cursed, a place where people vanished, where footprints led to nowhere. I slammed my laptop shut, chest heaving. But it didn't end there. That night, as I lay awake, rain tapping against my window, I heard it, the whispering just beyond the glass. I rushed to the window and peered outside, breath fogging the glass. I could just make out the wet trail of footprints leading straight to my door.